My daughter is obsessed with an old man. Today I found out the disgusting things he did to her. My daughter was celebrating her 4th birthday at a local Chuck E. Cheese, and that's when I first heard of my daughter's horrifying little secret. During the party, I felt a small tug on the skirt. I turned to Melissa, my daughter, staring up at me. "Mommy, Mr. Moogie wants to come home with us," she said. I knelt down to get to her level. "Who's that, baby?" I replied. She looked around, as if searching for someone, then said, "He's my new friend. I don't see him though. He must have gone to grab his coat, but he's tall and has white hair." Then I realized that my little baby had her first imaginary friend. I nodded enthusiastically and replied, "Okay, sweetie, Mr. Moogie is more than welcome in our home whenever he wants." But after looking back at it, I regret ever saying that. I thought nothing of Mr. Moogie initially, although things around the house had gotten strange after that, and a lot of it had to do with my daughter's imaginary friend. She insisted on having her window open every night, and Mr. Moogie never seemed to want to be in the room with me. Every time I'd ask her where he was, she'd say something like, "He went home for the day," or "He decided to go for a walk around the block." I once jokingly asked if he didn't like me. She looked at me hurt and said, "Oh no, mommy, Mr. Moogie loves you a whole bunch. He just gets she." My daughter's shenanigans went on for a year. The only problem was, as more time went on, the more immersed she became in Mr. Moogie. She changed a lot of parts of her personality, which she said was something Mr. Moogie wanted her to do. My emotions were mixed between worry and frustration. She would spend so much time alone, opting to shut herself away in her bedroom with him rather than go spend her time outside with me like we usually did. She refused certain things she used to love, such as cuddles with her grandfather, and it was difficult to get her to even go to the drag queen convention with me, which she previously begged me to do. Even at school, she started misbehaving, begging for Mr. Moogie to come save her. She was out of control at that point. She trashed my house on several occasions before I finally threw my hands up and yelled, "God damn it, Melissa, what are you doing?" She held her head in shame and kept saying, "Mr. Moogie said it was the only way I could please you." I felt fed up, but I was more worried. I badly wanted to take her to a doctor, but American healthcare costed too much, and I simply couldn't afford it after my husband passed away in a horrible car crash. Silently, I hoped she would grow out of it. Then, one morning, I woke up to find that Melissa was fully dressed. Most of the time, she would opt to wear pajamas. "What's the special occasion?" I asked, treading lightly as possible. She replied, "Mr. Moogie wants to play outside today." I nodded, relieved that she was going to be outside instead of locked away. I decided that I'd do the dishes so I could stay inside and watch her play in the yard. I was amidst washing the dishes while Melissa went outside, and then I turned around to put away some pots. But when I looked back, she was gone. I ran outside. I screamed her name, but got no reply. I called the police immediately, and a rescue search had started for my daughter. Every hour that passed, I prayed to a God that I didn't fully believe in. I prayed for my daughter's safety. I prayed that this was just one of many odd but harmless occurrences. Hours turned into days. Then days turned into weeks. Weeks turned to months. Half a year had gone by, and there was no sign of Melissa. I was devastated and confused. Then, at 2:37 a.m. on a rainy October night, a call came into the police station from a man claiming to have seen someone carrying a body through his backyard. The police caught him in the act. Older man, probably in his 40s, a tall, skinny man with thick glasses. Nothing at all special about him, other than the fact that the body he was trying to bury was that of my little Melissa. I ran down to the station and had my brother accompany me. They wanted to see if I could recognize the guy. My brother grasped my hand tightly, likely fighting back tears himself, as we stared at this strange man from behind weird mirror glass. Detective Lorenzo stared at me with his menacing eyes, then said, "Do you know this man?" I shook my head and said, "No, I've never seen him in my life." My brother looked at me with confusion and exclaimed, "What are you talking about? Don't lie to them." My head turned foggy. It took a few moments for me to realize what was said and reply, "No, I've never seen him." My brother looked a bit angry with me and replied, "Are you shitting me? He was in and out of your fucking house for that past year." At that point, I didn't know what my brother was talking about. Was this some sort of sick prank? A few minutes later, I sat at a metal table, across from Detective Lorenzo. His tone had changed from sympathetic to accusatory and said, "How do you know Thomas Mooney?" He pushed a photo of the man that killed my daughter across the table. I shook my head, almost too bewildered to speak. With tears rolling down my cheeks, I said, "I don't know that man." He stood up quickly, slamming his hands on the table and yelled, "He was in your house. People saw him walking everywhere with you and your daughter. Your own brother saw the man come in and out of your house." At that moment, that's when I made the connection. Moogie, Mr. Moogie. Oh shit, there was no way. Mr. Moogie was imaginary, right? An imaginary friend of my daughter. It was not possible that a man could have avoided me, been in my home with my child for over a year, yet the evidence was there. The neighborhood watch had installed surveillance cameras a few years before we moved in. The footage showed Tomas Mooney, a man I never met until I saw him in that interrogation room, crawling through the windows of my home, mostly Melissa's bedroom window. I thought that was it, but then they showed me footage of my bedroom. I was sound asleep. Then, Mr. Mooney walked into the room and came onto the bed. We slept together every night, allegedly, but I was never able to catch him in my bed the next morning. The police asked a few people around the community if they ever saw him. Most of them nodded solemnly. They all assumed that he was a relative or a family friend. Then I took a good stare at Mr. Mooney. I don't know what it is, but he has a striking resemblance to my dead husband.